Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. And good morning to New Haven Mayor Tony Hart.
Good morning.
Here in the studio for the regular Monday morning checkup on what she and we are up to in New Haven. So nice to see you. And I hear it's going to be a nicer week, maybe a little hot.
Well, I'm so cold today that I could use a little hot.
I mean, it's like close to 90 or something. Would you say that, Harry?
Really, that hot? We go from one extreme to the other.
We do. What happened to spring? Remember that thing, spring?
I know. I love spring too.
And
I was like, what about 75?
Yeah, 75, I'll go for it. And then like night 62 or something.
Yeah.
And you can join the conversation by tweeting a question or comment here or calling us at 203-872-7ELM, 203-872-7356. If you're listening on Facebook Live, you can send in a question that way. Do you want to help Lawrence with the get it on their page? And today's program is made possible in part thanks to support from Bertram Moses and Devlin PC and from Gateway Community College in downtown New Haven. Thanks, Gateway. Thanks, Bertram. And thanks for coming in, Mayor Harp. So, how was Mother's Day? Did they give you a nice lunch?
It was really nice. My daughter from Atlanta came into town.
Just for Mother's Day?
For the weekend. And my son cooked brunch for us. It was really good.
They love their mom.
Oh, I love them.
She really came all the way from Atlanta for Mother's Day weekend?
She did.
She gets a lot of points here.
She did.
Okay. So what did your son make?
He made a quiche, and then he had eggs, and then he made some sort of a green and peppers, really hot green vegetable dish, and berries, and he made really wonderful coffee, much better than mine.
That sounds good.
That was good.
I made my wife, well, that we did Sunday anyway, arugula and guacamole omelet.
Oh, wow, that sounds good.
And a smoothie and some toast.
That
Probably would have cost a lot of money if we went out for that. I'm glad we had it home.
Well, that's everything for ours, yeah.
Did you go to any events in town on Mother's Day?
I went to Varick AME Zion Church.
What was going on there?
Mother's Day celebration. It was very nice,
How does a church recognize? Was it part of the regular service, right?
As part of the regular service, and I know in this particular church, all the mothers came up for a special prayer.
All right. Did you go up too?
Yeah, of course.
Do they still sell out there? Still standing room only?
Well, I went to the 9:30 service, and they had already had a 7:30 service. The 9:30 service was standing room only, and the 11 o'clock was supposed to be even bigger than that. So yeah, they do pretty well.
That's a great
over
church.
There. Very much so.
I love Eric. I love this historic church. It's probably Underground Railroad.
Right.
T. Washington gave his final public talk there.
199 years old.
And isn't it great when it's still going strong?
Yeah.
Like it's one of the most vibrant houses of worship in town.
Absolutely.
3 sittings on Sunday. So many people come, and they do great stuff. They're doing economic development. They got their school, and they have leadership paths from one minister to another, and the laity's still going strong.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful, and they really do a lot of social media stuff that is kind of impressive too. So they just stay very current in spite of the fact that they're almost 200 years old.
So even though you had time for brunch, weekends are kind of like when you start going to work almost, at least that the out of the office part. You were at an event for Judge Keys Friday night, right?
I was, yeah.
Jack Keys, the probate judge.
But unfortunately, it was in honor of his father, Thomas Keys.
Okay, he was also the town clerk, wasn't he?
He was the what do they call it? The
City
probate,
town clerk.
the
Probate judge.
probate judge.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
They both were probate judges, and there's a fund that helps grandparents and aunts and uncles who want to care for kids instead of putting them into the DCF system. They provide, a little help here, a little help there, so they had a fundraiser for that.
People don't think often about a probate judge. It sounds like one of those terms you just kind of hear unless you come in contact with it, dealing with an estate. You don't really know much about what goes on in it. Even though it's a courtroom, it's at 200 Orange Street, the office building. What strikes me is how many compelling stories walk through those doors of people who have to decide who kids are going to stay with.
Right.
And it's almost being like King Solomon, some of the decisions Judge Keys has to make. So you're talking about a fund that helps kids like outside of DCF. That's very much tied into what people don't realize is a big responsibility on the shoulders of a probate judge.
No, it's absolutely a big responsibility, and oftentimes he sees situations that he thinks could be better handled by families if they have the resources rather than institutionally. And so that's what the Kinship Fund is all about. And they were instrumental, actually, in getting one started for the entire state of Connecticut. I don't know how it's faring with these budget woes, but it's really important that the probate judges that come face to face with these issues, and they know that if they buy a bed for a grandparent, that grandparent would be able to house a child instead of sending them off to foster care. Or if there is some respite for the grandparent, and they knew that they could send them to camp in the summertime, that grandparent would be willing to do that and to have to care for the child, thinking that they would expand the resources that they as a family have, but there's just a little bit extra to help out with the young people and their needs.
And you're listening to Mayor Tony Harp on Mayor Monday here on WNHH Radio. And we and by the way, Harry, is this up on their Facebook page?
Yeah, I just shared it all over.
All right, so if you're watching on Facebook, you can you type in your questions there, like last week, and Harry, you monitor that, right? Harry Jones is our station manager, as well as the bravest man in New Haven. He's an unapologetic Donald Trump fan.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Oh my goodness, and he's actually fun to talk to about it. And you can also call us at 203-872-7Elm, 203-872-7356, as Bob has done. Bob, it's great to hear your voice here on Monday morning on Mayor Monday.
Hey Bob, how you doing? Thank you. It was busy. I enjoyed it, yeah. Yes.
And my question about the police chief is about community policing. And also, the other question I have is, especially since Dean Esserman has left, there haven't been a lot of arrests when it comes to murders.
Well, there actually haven't been murders, have there?
That's right. There have only been 2 murders.
Two so far, and then the other night I was watching one of the Connecticut TV stations, and they were there at a fundraiser for a teen who was killed a couple of years ago, Eric Scott, whose family is trying to raise money. Maybe you can address those 2 questions. I also had another question. Something else.
Thank you, Bob. We should just let our listeners know that Mayor Harp this weekend did decide on a new police chief, Anthony Campbell, who has been the interim police chief since September. He's been in the force 19 years. He's a graduate of Yale Divinity School, Yale College, and he used to run the training academy in the police department, among many other assignments. And he's your new choice for police chief.
We had many distinguished officers apply for the position, and there were any number of them could have been chief. We engaged in I asked our chief administrative officer, who has as his responsibility the police department, to do a search, and he amassed a committee of I think about 7 people, and then they posted the position. I wanted it to be in-house or someone who'd worked in the police department, because I feel very strongly that even though it's not perfect, we probably do the best community-based policing in the United States.
And we had a series of chiefs who were not from this department.
Right.
So it sounds like you took a look at that and you said your preference was for someone who was New Haven developed.
Yes, because I think that you don't want to have somebody come in from the outside and have to bring them up to date on how it is that we've evolved over time to really have what I would consider to be a good relationship with the community. And all of policing doesn't really see community-based policing as the way to police. So that, and you never know, people will tell you anything to get the job, right? So I thought it was better that we were at the point of maturity as a department to be able to look at those leaders who've matured with the department and consider them for the chief, and so as well as others who've worked in the department.
Anything in that you personally interviewed the 3 finalists? Was there a moment in the interview that sticks out in your mind? Something that was said that had a big impression on you?
You know what was really, really impressive about all 3 candidates was that all 3 candidates were impressive, and that frankly, it wasn't so much what was said, because they all had wonderful stories to tell. They've all grown professionally through New Haven Police Department. They're all committed to the police department. What I had to weigh and measure was who can bring what I perceive as how can I put it? There seemed to be a lot of cliques in that department. And what I was listening for was who could be respected by all of the members of the department, who was neutral enough and not seen as being in this camp or that camp.
It is true that Anthony Campbell is not seen as being part of one camp.
Right.
I do hear that, I heard pros and cons for all the candidates, and everyone had their passionate backers.
Right.
But I did hear you watched them. I haven't seen any of that kind of factionalism.
And I think that one of our, and I think we, as I said before, I really believe that we have one of the best police departments in the United States. But to take it to the next level, we have got to learn how to operate out within the whole department and not within certain cliques. That's my observation.
So that was
as
one
mayor.
big thing for the next step. I talked to Chief Campbell, and he said that one of his priorities is to start something called the Family Justice Center.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little embarrassed to find out that I had written an article about it and forgot about that a year ago. That there
I
was
am
an effort to
shocked
start
that you
one.
forgot anything.
Are you serious?
I
I don't have a short-term memory at all anymore. Oh, thank you very much. I do remember like ward elections, like your first race in 1987. But what I did last week, I write notes around the house to try to remind myself, like place them strategically. That's old people talk.
So that was one of the things, and
That's about domestic violence. He said that he
yes.
feels that that's the next big the hurdle he wants to tackle is
Yes.
how do we go the next step on the tackle. And that Family Justice Center, Julie Johnson, who's a retired captain of the New England Department, cared a lot about domestic violence. And she, since she retired, she's been involved with an organization that puts these centers up in cities around the country. I guess they have a good one in Brooklyn, for instance, that Chief Campbell said has led to one of the lowest incidences of homicides involved with domestic violence. And he said the key is to have everything under one roof. Like the idea is that you went to the domestic violence shelter and it needed to be private where you went because you didn't want the abuser to find you. But in fact, this is a one-stop center that has everything on site, including police protection, including the lawyer you need to talk to, including the mental health you're going to need, including help with housing. And that it looks in a holistic way, which is a lot of the social challenges we've addressed in recent years, take the similar approach about this one-stop shopping.
No, I think that it helps, when you think about transportation issues, and transportation is still a major issue in New Haven, unfortunately. It's really important that not be the reason that you don't get the help that you need. And so I think the fact that he was aggressively wanting to support that, I would imagine the others would have, but it's something that he actually wants to accomplish, is really meaningful, because if you look at the two, at least the last murder that we had, I would argue that it had more to do with domestic violence, had probably very little to do with gang violence.
It sounds like she knew the person, right? I
Look
can't
that
say
way.
certain reason why that's believed, but my sense was from information I've been told,
Yes.
it sounds like it was somebody who knew somebody else in the department.
And last year when you look at the murders that we had, over a third of them were due to domestic violence. If we're really going to reduce the violence in our community and reduce the murders, we've got to address domestic violence. And as you point out, Brooklyn has had a huge success. It's big, And when you think about how big it is and the fact that they have been able to reduce it in that community, it's really important that we have someone who thinks it's important here to begin to address it.
And Bob, are you still on the line? You said you had another question for Mayor Tony Hart.
I'm still trying. It's one of his priorities, trying to solve some of these unsolved murders.
Well, I think that, I think that we are doing our best. And I actually think that we've been able to solve some cold cases lately, and I can't tell you exactly which ones they are, but the colder they get, the harder it is. But we've actually got a group of people, a unit that is working on those cold cases
We
now.
had a cold case unit established a few years ago that did dive into that backlog. Our murder rate dropped enough that it was determined that we were able to dedicate resources to those cold cases,
Right.
and there have been a bunch in the last few years.
And so, while I know there are still some outstanding, we have a unit that is working on it, and I think that if you look at our practices, that they really are following a best practice model.
Well, Bob, thanks so much for calling in to Mayor Hart. You know, it's
Is it going to be fun, Bob? Because, go ahead. Uh-huh. I have had I have spoken to President Salovey about it, and I understand their position, and they see things very differently than the hunger strikers.
And it's interesting, graduation's coming up next week. So there's going to be some kind of... What's your guess? You think that Yale's going to tear down that embankment or no?
I don't know. I'm assuming if they haven't torn it down now, they probably won't.
It's graduation
Although I'll
and then
tell you what,
reunions.
like you have to walk through that plaza to get around at least some group of folks. So I don't know what they're going to do. They haven't shared that one with me.
I'm going to share with you that you're listening to Mayor Monday at WNHH Radio, your home for community radio at 103.5 FM and live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. We're also up on Facebook Live on the New Haven Independent page. If you'd like to call us the way Bob just did, you could dial 203-872-7ELM, 203-872-7356. Or if you want to do what Aaron Good just did, which is to post a question for Mayor Harp on Facebook Live. Aaron has a question for you, Mayor Harp. Does Mayor Harp think it is appropriate, parentheses, and legal, close parentheses, to transfer the powers of the zoning board to the Board of Alders in cases of, quote, high impact development? Before you answer, Mayor Harp, I want to explain what this means to our readers who haven't read the article in the New Haven Independent. So the Board of Alders has a new proposal that's moving faster than anything I've seen in recent years. They kind of introduced at the last minute on a suspension calendar on a main board meeting last week. It's already getting a hearing this week and being brought back theoretically to the full board a week later to be considered. And this is to create a whole new zoning category in New Haven called high impact development. And it'd be aimed at colleges and universities, primarily Yale, that anytime Yale would ever build anything again in New Haven, they would have to get a special exception. And they'd have to go through a lot of steps, including spelling out how this development will affect public transportation, local hiring, and a bunch of parking. And also, it would give new powers to the Board of Alders. They would have a first crack at saying yes or no to anything Yale wants to build. And then, if they say no, the zoning board would need a supermajority to pass it. And that sounds really technical, folks, but it's actually huge because it would totally change the way we approve zoning among our biggest builder in town. And it would give new powers to the Board of Alders. That one of the big debates. So the Board of Alders said they're doing this because the public does want there to be development, but they want to have a say in it. Yale, like other colleges, is expanding, doing a lot of development in town, and that they want to make that happen, but they want to let the public weigh in to make sure it benefits the community. Yale and members of Mayor Harp's administration have argued that it's not legal because under state statute, the Board of Alders can't make decisions on special exceptions and variances, but even if separate from that aspect of the rule, there was an argument that it adds more layers to approval and it feels like some kind of power grab. What's your sense so far on this? Aaron Good was asking.
Well, you know what? I have asked our corporation counsel to opine upon this. And once I have looked at his opinion, and I'll be able to answer the question.
So too early to have a stand.
It's really too early.
You know, it's interesting. I sat with people on both sides who feel so passionately, and I guess that's one of the fun parts of being a reporter. When you're sitting with people who care so much about it and have studied it, you can see where they're coming from. So I'm sitting with the people who are for this, and you say, yeah, you know, we should have some say from the public about development. And Yale's a big institution, and even though it's not for profit, it's like a business. And we're glad it's here. We want them to do stuff, but we don't want them to do stuff without people having a say. And then the other side, I'm hearing, you know, we have rules for planning and zoning, and that you don't want to make it so complicated, and you don't want to take certain powers away that we've had for over a century in state law that have a different kind of process that might take politics out of it. And then on the other side, you say, how do you define politics? Politics can sometimes mean letting people have more of a democratic say. So it'll be an interesting one to watch, and I think this week there are 2 hearings on it. So,
Yes.
okay, there you are. We got about as far as we're going to get to beyond that one today. Did you get to Art Walk this weekend?
I didn't get a chance to go there.
Me either. It was raining.
raining.
I feel so bad for them. You know, Westville community puts so much into that.
Yeah.
They start out for every week's May. They have a big event called Art Walk. So much art has sprung up in Westville, along with this renaissance of the neighborhood. More businesses, a lot more artist studios, events throughout the year at Lyric Hall, at the library, which is going great guns. And you know, they have their Friday night opening, which traditionally gets thousands of people. People don't realize that, to the galleries downtown, and they have music. They close off part of Central Avenue. But it seems like this second year in a row, and it's been a bunch of years, that just rains and rains that Saturday.
I know, this Saturday was just a torrential downpour all day long, all night long. It was horrible.
And cold.
And
But they
cold.
still did stuff inside. They still, if you could read about the Independent, they still did it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was and was there Quinnipiac Riverfest too, or was that yesterday?
Oh, no, that's coming up.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's going to be on May 20th, and it will be from 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And if it rains, they're going to have a rain date actually on Sunday, May 21st. And so it's really great. There are a lot of fun things to do with your kids, so bring your kids there. And
Which website?
they are going to have a 1 mile race at 11 o'clock, which is new. It's called the Front Street Dash. So come on down. There'll be music, dancing, craft beers.
Really?
Craft beers.
I like craft beer.
Food, vendors, canoe rides, and really a lot of activities for the kids.
You left out the mayoral proclamation
Yes, always that.
that there shall not rain. We've had one rain out,
And you know, a lot of good that'll do, right?
and it's that time of year where we have so much stuff going on the weekends. This is really the great
Yeah,
time
it
in New
is.
Haven, and it gets more so as the summer comes. There's just so many fun stuff going on. I hear you getting the dragon boats again,
Yeah,
like
we're
they do
gonna
on
get
City
that.
Point,
Yeah.
and then all the festival all summer
We're
long.
gonna have I think we're gonna have the food truck festival again, and if you
That's a
want,
great addition. Say people love that.
yeah,
People love the food truck festival. That is already a new tradition. Yeah, and you tie that into the dragon boats.
yeah, absolutely. So it's gonna be a lot of fun in New Haven.
It is. New Haven's the funnest city
It
around.
really is.
And one of our listeners just said they're having trouble hearing the show from the New Haven Independent website. We did check. It does seem to be working. You could always try refreshing. And actually, if you're hearing this, you probably can hear the show. But you can go to Facebook Live, WNHH, or I guess the mayor's page, hear it there, or just refresh the page and you'll hear it as well. So Stetson Library, which is one of the great institutions in town in the Dixville neighborhood. It's sort of a community center, everything, since we haven't had the Q House. That's where people go, young
Right.
people. It's going to be part of the new Q House you're building.
Right?
And they're raising $2 million to make it a state-of-the-art joint.
Mm-hmm.
So that last week you sort of formally kicked that one
Kicked
off.
that one off. We kicked it off at the Stetson Library, and I am an honorary co-chair with President Salovey.
So when you go and do something like that with an event, like you did this also with the DOT chair, how do you guys compartmentalize? Like you're not at odds with the guy at all, but I mean,
I think
but
he's
you're on a different
wonderful
side of an
human-
event the other
Yeah.
day, yeah.
He's a wonderful human being, and you know, people see things differently from where they sit, and I think we both accept that.
And that's sort of we need more in civic America. It's people, right, who are just like if they disagree about something, they can't talk and do stuff together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, and look, Yale is a great partner to the city, and I think everybody, no matter what side you're on, agrees with that. And what President Salovey said about the Stetson Library was that Yale was going to donate $250,000, and
That's a nice chunk of change.
and there was a silent, invisible donor, don't know the name, who donated $750,000.
Well, we should find out who these invisible people. Maybe we can sort of partly see him and see if they're.
Leave well enough alone.
That's a big donor.
But part of that, I believe, is another donor is going to donate $250,000 if it's matched by the community. So
that'll get us 3/4 of the way there. So they need $2 million.
right.
So they've gotten $1 million from Yale and this anonymous donor we all want to meet when the show's over. And then someone else with $250. If we can match that, we'll be 3/4 of the way there.
We'll be 3/4 of the way there, and we think that we'll get all the way there, and beyond, because the thought is that if we can go beyond the $2 million, then we can build up the library foundation, and we'll be able to do more things in that the library won't be subject to the vagaries of state budgets and local budgets, and we'll be able to keep the libraries open. And as you know, they're fundamental to a strong democracy.
And speaking of the vagaries of the state budget, oy vey. So we got this $5 billion 2-year deficit they're now projecting, and I didn't realize it's 25 out of 50 states have a lot less revenue coming in than they thought they were going to have.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I read that this weekend in the Times, so I believe it's true, despite what Harry Drost thinks about the New York Times that he calls fake news. And I'm going with it, Harry. 25 states. So this has caused a total stepping on the brakes in Hartford about what they could promise and what you can expect. There were first of all, there were short-term rescissions, meaning a bland word for the cutting the heck out of things right away for the current budget, let alone going to the next one. How bad did we get hit on that?
So we got hit pretty badly. You know, we had a budget that just balanced. And I wish that we could have said that it balanced and there'd be some surplus, but no, it just balanced. And so to learn from the Secretary of Office of Policy and Management that we're going to get hit $2 million is, you know, it's very disconcerting.
So I'm sorry, how much did we get hit?
$2 million.
We got a $2 million rescission last week?
Yes, we did.
What was it cut from?
The cut was from the Pequot Fund.
And where did that money go?
What do you mean?
Like, where in the budget is the hole? What was the $2 million for? Was it general fund operating budget, or was it
it's
just general dollars?
Yes, it's because they, as you pointed out, the state in this year's budget is going to be out of balance.
So wait, so now all of a sudden, while you're trying to pass next year's budget without knowing how much state money is going to be in it, you now have to close the gap of $2 million from the current year budget that ends at the end of next month.
In 6 weeks, absolutely, and the
So
Board
you
of
got 6
Education.
weeks to find $2 million.
And yes, and New Haven Public Schools has to find on top of that. Well, they have to find another 1.3.
So we got hit 3.3 million
Yeah.
in the same rescissions.
Well, one came earlier than the other, but the same impact.
This is a big deal.
It's huge.
So tell me about it. Where are we going to find this $2 million?
Well, you know, one of the things that we're going to be doing, and it should come out today, is a freeze, a hard freeze.
What's a hard freeze?
Well, basically it means that if you haven't spent it, even if it's in your budget, if it's not contracted, it's gone.
On all city departments
All city departments.
for the rest of this year.
Yes, except unless it's needed for public safety.
Wow. So what kind of stuff is that going to affect?
It's going to affect every single department, and police and fire to a limited extent, but every single department's going to be impacted.
Wow. So is that going to make up the $2 million in your projection?
We think we'll get close.
Jeez. And then what schools are going to do?
They're going to have to do something similar. They may actually, I'm hoping that they will end in the black, but they may not.
Wow. And now we got to talk. We got to talk about this every week, I think, because the word keeps changing at Hartford. So we were counting on $31 million in new state aid on top of what we were getting. The state's in budget crisis. It seems to be progressing in budget crisis, and then more and more in budget crisis. What is this going to mean? What's your latest thinking on this $31 million? Do you think we're going to get it?
I'm really concerned that that it's likely that we won't get it unless they do somehow enact the proposal that will allow municipalities that have hospitals to
Tax their
come up
properties.
with, they're now not calling it a tax.
Oh my God, you got to update me here on
That's another
this.
euphemism.
Yeah, give me some euphemism watch here.
It's some sort of a pilot.
Why is that? There must be some legal reason.
Well,
here.
I think they don't want to. This is the Connecticut Hospital Association. Who knows what our local hospitals think about this? But they don't want to get into a situation where there are not-for-profit hospitals but are taxed as profit.
So how would a
for
pilot
profit.
work?
Basically, they would probably, the way that I'm thinking that it will work, I haven't seen they're working on the proposal as we speak, but the way that I've been led to believe that it would work very similarly to a property tax, and that, but it just would be called a payment in lieu of taxes.
But you would be able to levy it by law.
Or there would be some agreement that it would be paid. And I don't know whether the agreement would be at the state level or at the local level, giving us the ability to levy.
So you've evolved on this position too, Mayor Harp. You were originally against it because you're worried that the state wasn't going to come through the money in this to make the hospitals whole. Do you feel now they can make the hospitals whole?
I think that there's still going to be an element of that in the bill that's passed, saying that if in fact that Medicaid is reduced and that they won't be able to charge Medicaid for this amount, that the state will back it. I'm feeling a little less secure about their ability to do that, but that was the thought, and that's, I believe, what is still being considered.
Is it fair to say, Mayor Harp, that you see some version of the hospital property tax / pilot as our best hope now for getting that $31 million?
If we're going to get $30 million, I really believe that that's probably the only place that we can get it.
And are we still going on Plan A, Plan B, where we're going to go do a city budget? Because we have to
do
create
a
our
city
budget before we find out what the state's doing. You don't want to tip our negotiating hand by giving it all away before they make their own decision in June or July. Is the plan to continue going ahead in the next couple of weeks?
Or November,
Yeah.
it seems like.
And we have to approve our budget by May 31st, is that right?
I think it's by the first week in June, but they usually do it by the end of May.
There's a special meeting on May 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still Plan A, keep $31 million in it while having a Plan B ready?
We're in the process of working with the leadership of the Board of Alders on this, and we haven't come to a decision yet.
Do you think it's possible we might revisit a lot of the assumptions about that $31 million?
I think that we're going to take a look at alternative ways in which to balance a budget.
Mm-hmm. Not super fun time to be doing budgets.
No, it's a really difficult time.
I'm trying to figure out why states are having this problem. In Connecticut, it's based on the income tax, based on us relying heavily on high earners in Fairfield County,
Mm-hmm.
and financial industry people who are doing great. I'm trying to figure out why halfway across the country at a time when the wealthy are doing great, our receipts from the wealthy are down so much. I know part of it's cyclical about when they declare money, but why would it keep on going for a couple of years?
Well, I think that, one of the things that we've noticed is that a lot of people are holding on to their money. They're keeping it in the market. They're not
They're not claiming earnings.
They're not claiming earnings.
They're not reinvesting.
And they're not reinvesting, and they've been doing it for a long time. So that is a problem, I believe, for our overall economy. But and we see the impacts.
All right, and you're hearing about them on Mayor Monday on WNHH Radio, New Haven's home for community radio, at 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. We did have other reasons to smile in New Haven this past week. One of them was the way the community rallied behind New Haven Reads. And not only the New Haven community, Penguin Books read an article that Lucy Gelman wrote in the Independent about how a sewage leak destroyed 300 books with the raw sewage that were about to be given away in an annual giveaway to people who don't have enough books. and everyone's rallied to replace the books that were lost. I felt good about that.
Oh, that's really good. And, you know, New Haven has really stepped up to be the city that reads. And we're going to all be reading Into the North together. So go to the library, get the book,
What is that book again?
Into the Beautiful North.
And what's that about again? I'm trying to
It's
remember.
about, I think, teenagers who are immigrating into the United States.
Oh, that's timely for us in New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing last week we could feel good about was the 100th anniversary of New Haven's NAACP. That was
Yeah.
quite a bash, huh? Roger Van came back. He
Roger was really
he
good.
was the old leader who really revived the modern NAACP to be an engine for social change.
I remember when he came home from college, and
I remember
he was
that too.
so excited about being a community activist, and he became the head of the NAACP and really moved it forward.
And then the state
Yeah.
NAACP,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
he became the head of the Common Cause. Was it Common Cause? ACLU in New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And then we all thought he might become mayor one day, but
Yeah.
instead he went to D.C. and became number 2 at the national NAACP. I guess now he's doing some kind of voter education, voter sign-up project nationally out of the D.C. area.
Oh, okay. I didn't get a chance to really say a lot. I just said hello, how's your family, and everybody was good. But you know, he's someone who's really made us proud.
And so what was the event like? It was a big bash there at the Alamo.
It was great. It was really kind of Roger Van, and I'm forgetting.
Marvin Lender got an award.
got an award, and then another woman who'd been active and a school teacher.
Oh, Mayola, the one of the Freedom Riders.
Right.
Lula White, yeah.
So it was great. It was there must have been it was a full house, and they gave away scholarships. They recognized people who had life memberships at the platinum level, and it was really nice.
And people dressed, I noticed that.
Yeah. Good.
I could have predicted that one.
You know, when we were talking about reading, I wanted to let you know that our reading commission is going to have its report out on Wednesday. So
And
hopefully
what
it
is the
comes.
Reading Commission? I know you say we're going to make this a New Haven city that reads, and you put in a group to help you give you ideas about
and that's
how
the
to
commission.
make that happen. What does it mean to be a city that reads?
Well, you know, one of the things that I would like to see is that for people who can't read, that have literacy problems, that we find a way to help them read. For our students in New Haven Public Schools, that they all read on grade level, and that we have opportunities to read books and discuss them together. So that's why we're doing the big read here.
It makes life so much richer.
It does. I mean, and it gives us a basis through which to talk about ideas.
Someone told me last night she's reading a new book by Jodi Picoult. I've never read her novels, but it takes place in New Haven.
Oh,
Based on a real story in Flint, Michigan, of a nurse who's African American and was dealing with some guy there who was a white supremacist, but then this black baby died and there was a murder charge, something going on.
Mhm.
She transferred it to New Haven and had the family come from Church Street South, and so it's supposed to be fun. I haven't looked at it yet, but I've been hearing about that. And Father Manship, there was news in the Register this morning that Father Manship, the immigrant reform priest at St. Rose of Lima in Fairhaven, he really oversaw a flowering of that church. It
Yeah.
became a huge congregation, largely immigrants. They're the ones who brought about the change in East Haven when the Justice Department came and saw that immigrants were being brutalized. And because of the work done by St. Rose congregants, they, including Father Manship, had a video when he was arrested, and one of the cops who was later found to be part of this unit that just brutalized people and covered it up, said to him, "Why are you taking a video of me?" and then arrested him and confiscated the camera and said, "I thought it was a gun." And on the video, it shows him saying, "Why are you taking a video of me?" That was Father Manship's role. And the U.S. Justice Department came and really did a great, back when we had a Justice Department, the Civil Rights Division, not a department that was sort of a front for the KKK. No, I really believe that. But we really had a Civil Rights Division. The St. Rosalima Church did so much, and Father Manship helped do that. Now he's been reassigned, and he's really sad to be leaving. In Meriden, they're combining 2 churches in Fairhaven.
Okay.
So, but you worked a lot with Father Manship,
I
right?
have worked with him. He's a wonderful, inspirational person, and you can see why his congregation loved him so much.
Yeah. And then today you're cutting a ribbon.
Yes.
Hunan House on Orange Street,
Mm-hmm.
Emma Lou.
Yep.
Is that the same place that had a Chinese restaurant before? Is it a new version of the one on Orange? near
I-
Tolly too. Tolly.
I wouldn't.
We're gonna find out.
We're
Stay
gonna find
tuned.
out. Yeah,
And also Freddie Fixer is this weekend, right?
Ready Fixer Parade.
And
Yeah.
you're gonna be marching in that.
Yes.
Of course, you're gonna be marching in that. And that committee's brought that one back, and
Yeah.
you know you're gonna be marching in some pretty fancy company.
Tom Joyner's.
Tom Joyner, I love Tom Joyner.
Joyner.
So you can be right up. You'll be right up there with the stars.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor Harper, we had a story this past week about sirens in New Haven. So some people are concerned about how loud the sirens are.
We
Is what-
worked on that actually.
And actually, starting 2 years ago, you directed your emergency management staff, including Rick Fontana, emergency management chief, the fire department, the police department. You were hearing complaints from the business community.
Right.
You had a committee that was the perception committee, I think it was called, about how New Haven's seen. And you asked them to look into this. And then there was a law professor moved into Taft 10 years ago who claimed he just couldn't stand all the loud sirens at all hours of the night. He started bombarding with emails the officials. And this was really interesting. They gave him an audience of one at City Hall in the Chief Administrative Officer Mike Carter's office. I sat in. They brought in this one guy who's been complaining about this, and they brought in the fire chief. They brought in the regional head of AMR Ambulance Company. They brought in Rick Fontana, who's in charge of emergency management city. They brought Mike Carter, and they all sat with him at a table and said, "We heard your complaints. The mayor cares about this too. Here's what we've done about it. Here's what we can't do. Here's what we can do going forward." So what they were saying was that we have, unlike in any other major city in Connecticut since the 70s, we've had all our firefighters trained as EMTs, emergency medical technicians, and that there's a feeling that saves lives. They get there quicker often, and they're able to start working on someone so that when the ambulance crew arrives, they can get right to work, keeping them alive, and the firefighters can do that too. So that often adds an extra siren to the mix. Instead of just an ambulance or just an ambulance and an engine company, you also have this paramedic unit or whatever coming to. So that's three. I'm not great on all the terms, but it's 3 sirens instead of 2 or 2 instead of 1. And in New Haven, we're a city. And there's a hospital right at the center of the city. So the ambulance is coming to and from that all the time. And we have tall buildings that create canyons where the sound ricochets. So that's another reason it's loud. But they said over the last 2 years since you directed them, they were able to do some stuff. For instance, there were lower priority calls. They were able to change some protocols so you're not always sending as many engines. If it's a medical office, either a doctor's office or an arm of a hospital or doctor's group, they are outpatient center. If there are first responders on site, you don't need the fire unit there. The AMR, the medical ambulance company, they station people around town. They don't set a central location. They look at the data where their calls come from. They say, where's the most likely place that if we station someone, they'll be near enough to get there quick. And they were able to look at the data and see where they can move a little bit away from densely populated places to keep them. And now they're going to look at other ideas too, such as working more on protocols about not always needing as many there, and maybe turning it on the sirens a little later in the run if that's possible. One thing they can't do is have them be lower volume because there are standards that are set in the country. So this guy said, thanks for sitting with me. He doesn't feel it's gotten quieter over the last 2 years. He feels it's gotten louder. It is true that every year we see a 6 to 7% increase in calls, emergency calls, because our population is aging.
Mm-hmm.
So there were 40,000 calls this year, and all but 15,000 included firefighters. But we were able to get rid of 1,000 based on this new protocol that they worked on in your direction. Other people, like the Town Green Special Service District, which recently brought this to your attention, said they do feel it's gotten quieter over the last 2 years. What's your take on it? How do you feel about it?
Well, and I think that it was brought to our attention also by the owner of the study, and from what I gather and have heard at meetings, that they believe that it's gotten quieter. So is it as you point out, it's never going to be 100%.
It's a city.
It's a city, and part of the reason that you have the sirens is that these cars are going faster than traffic, and it's a safety measure. So, unfortunately...
And as the fire chief pointed out, he said, and I heard this also from a police chief who was here for a few years from LA, James Lewis, they've never seen drivers who disobey rules more than in New Haven. He says, they're going to emergency calls and people just stay right in front of the fire truck. You gotta blast that horn. He said, James Lewis said to me, I've been to LA, I've never seen a place where people just ignore traffic rules more than New Haven. I wonder if that's true.
Well, I don't know if it's true or not, but I drive with my officers, and they often point out some things every day where there's people are not as vigilant around the rules as they could be.
That's diplomatic. You must be someone who runs for office. That was a very diplomatic way of saying it. And how about the diplomatic way that our president got rid of his FBI director last
Oh
week?
my goodness.
Any thoughts on, are we living in a tin pot dictatorship, or as Harry Droz says, were people just overreacting to the idea of the guy needed to go and they did their work for a couple of weeks and
Oh
found a
my
basis for him to
goodness. Are
go?
you kidding? I think it was frightening.
And what
And
frightened you about it?
What frightened me about it is that this whole investigation about Russia and where he was going with his investigation, it appeared as if there was some move to thwart it.
So in other words, you think Donald Trump acted because of the investigation into his own administration's relationship to Russia?
I do, and I
I thought he acted because he was upset that poor Hillary Clinton had been treated badly by James Comey.
So he changed his mind. He suddenly feels sorry for Hillary.
Well, what got me that week is that was obviously a big deal about the FBI chief, but on that same day, on Tuesday when it broke, and then again on Friday, his head of the head of the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, made a direction that prosecutors are supposed to seek the maximum penalties in all cases for drug offenses, including nonviolent, low-level drug offenses. He's overturning a directive from the Obama administration, and he's going against a Republican Democratic bipartisan push to have fewer people go to jail and find alternatives to incarceration for nonviolent offenders. That got very little attention, but it actually might affect you in New Haven here more.
Well, you know, one of the things that we've learned about President Trump and the outlandish things that he does that get a lot of press attention, that you've really got to look under the story and find out what else is going on. Because it's almost like magic, where you get everybody's attention over here while you're really doing something that's far more destructive over here. And this may be a case in point.
All right. But we're still plugging in New Haven.
We're plugging.
We make our own rules here, right?
And
When we
there are
can.
rules here and in Connecticut. And as long as 25 states are showing financial declines, I think people are going to have to say, gee, do I want to arrest a low-level marijuana user, or do I want to pay for my schools?
And actually, there's been a consensus with Republican and Democrats, conservative and liberal think tanks, that more people get help and don't commit crimes again if they're not arrested, but if we have lower cost diversionary treatments for them.
Absolutely. It's far more effective.
All right.
And so the real question is, do you just want to keep people locked up so they're not in the economy and give jobs to those people who are locking them up, or do you want to help people who have a behavioral health disease?
That's a tough one. Well, thanks for challenging us here on Mayor Monday on WNHH Radio. What a pleasure it always is, Mayor Hart, to chat with you on Monday. Thanks for coming in.
All right.
I hope the food's good at the ribbon cutting today.
I hope so, sir. I hope they have protein.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. No carbs. And thanks to Bertram Moses and Devlin PC and Gateway Community College for providing financial support for today's show. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the CD A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass reminding us all that we do know what it feels like to be free. We just have to book our flight. Book your flight and fly free with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.